Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Bulletproof for BJJ podcast. I am JT.
Hey guys, I'm Joey.
And today we are talking about fixing your tight shoulders. So this is something very common in jiu-jitsu, but not everybody understands why their shoulders are so jacked and tight. And so we're going to break that down, talk about how you can address this as an issue and fix it long term so you're not always sucking with your posture and your pain. Have you ever experienced anything like this before, Joe?
And I've been reasonably fortunate with the shoulders. I did have some AC joint injuries a couple of times back in the day, I think, from getting taken down and dumped. But shoulder range has always been okay for me. But I do know that for so many people I train with, their shoulders are just chronically tight. And you know it from when you put someone, like you mount them, and you start to like walk the knees up and they get to that and they're almost tapping just by nature of their arms being overhead.
That's right.
And you're like, fuck, that's really bad. Like, you know, because you should kind of be able to like just throw your arm up there.
Sure. But I think there's another thing that people don't appreciate is that Joe has spent a bit of time in a handstand position, which requires very good shoulder extension.
Yeah.
And BJJ people don't have that.
Yeah.
That's really not what we do. And I'll be honest, more recently myself, I've spent a bit more time trying to get stronger and have given up a little bit of flexibility.
How dare you?
Oh God, I'm an idiot. But this is what it is, people. And so for some of you out there, so you understand what we're talking about when we're talking about like your kind of kyphotic posture, that kind of hunchback jiu-jitsu golem look, what this is doing to your shoulder is it is basically Kimura-ing yourself with bad posture. We're talking tight pecs, tight anterior deltoids, tight lats, kind of blocked thoracic, can't get extension. And this is leading to almost like what we call like a bench press posture, where someone who benches a lot's got this kind of hench look. And that's not doing anything for you because basically, and you may experience this might be you. I might be talking directly to you down this microphone, that if someone even goes to like put a Kimura on, you're tapping straight away. Like you've got no flexibility at internal rotation.
The classic one is when you're drilling the Kimura, like coach's like, oh, tonight we're working this Kimura variation. And like you apply the double wrist lock, and before you've even been able to apply it, the partner's going, stop. And you're like, I haven't been able to drill the technique yet. They're like, yeah, no, that's it for my, you know what I mean? And like you realize, holy shit, yeah. So, and then you've also obviously got those other people on the other end of the spectrum who are just like
very flexible.
Yeah, like send it, I'm fine. We're talking to the first group.
The tighter end of the spectrum. So let's identify the problem, guys, because for most of us, we might understand, hey, our posture's not good and my shoulders feel tight and jacked up. I don't know what to do.
Where does, just in terms of like, you know, for say maybe some folks who are listening, they're like, oh, I don't know, I think my shoulders are fine. Where is something that say we identify, like maybe in the gym through exercises or whatever, that people have tight shoulders?
Do you mean as in moves they can and can't do?
Yeah.
I think the test generally is the wall angel, you know, getting people to just, it's very simple, guys. You just sit up, putting your back against the wall, being able to keep your middle back against the wall, taking your hands back. So external rotation, your arms up are about 90 degrees. Can you put the backs of your hands and your elbows against the wall comfortably and keep your middle back against the wall? Most people will arch their back and go, oh, I got it. And it's like, you
might get the knuckles, but not the elbow.
Yeah, really it should be the wrist. It shouldn't be back of the hand. And then from there, how much range do you have? Like if you were to lift your hands up above your head, can you keep the back of your hands and your elbows against the wall through that range, you know, without, you know, dislocating your own shoulder? And that's the thing. Really, the place it shows out probably the most is like an overhead press or someone trying to lift up. You get them to lift their arm up and you go, lift your hand above your head. They're like, oh, it is above my head. You're like, no, it's out of your line of sight, but it's not actually above your head. And you need that extension. And really the thing when we're trying to help people with this, we're looking at your chest, pecs, pec minor, pec major, your anterior deltoid, which might be tight. But the thing which is not addressed is the lats. The lats are an internal rotator of the shoulder. And because we do jiu-jitsu, we're like, oh man, we want to have strong lats. We want to do pull-ups, you know, like having a strong pulling action is good for jiu-jitsu.
And lats hang out of those team singlets as well, which is a good look in the summertime.
Oh,
you want that lat meat.
Oh, that big portion of steak.
But the bigger your lats are, the more grip I got when I'm taking you back.
True.
Right? You're coming around, you got that, you're like, oh, this is a green climb. This one, you're like, fuck yeah, I'm inside the lat. Yeah.
There's that too.
Just to the muscle groups we're talking, you know, for us, it's like pecs, lats, deltoids, but deltoids are these ones on the shoulders. Pecs, we all know, it's fucking chest, and then lat, this big one back here, and that's really like, if you can look at the torso, you can think those muscles are actually, they're not all of them, but they are muscles of the shoulder.
Yes,
right. Lats, delts, pec, they move your shoulder around. So think of them as, rather than like it's my chest muscles, that's a piece of your shoulder.
That's true, and that's the thing that we often just work on what we can see. And so these
shout out to the mirror muscle boys.
My God, aesthetics, bro. So, you know, we're looking at our chest, our abs, our quads. We're looking at the front. It's not often someone goes, oh, look at my infraspinatus. Like, you know, no one's talking about how good their rotator cuff's looking because you can't see it.
What is the rotator cuff?
So the rotator cuff is like a pretty small group of muscles. If you think that, like, for the best part, this is a oversimplification, but they're almost like the size of your fingers in a way. And they stretch out through your scapula and they affect the movement of your humerus, your upper arm bone. So they start around at the back and depending on the position of them have different responsibilities due to internal rotation and external rotation. Now, talking about this, guys, we'll probably take a step back.
You could say they're like the interior shoulder muscles. And then on the outside, you've got like delts, pecs, like all the stuff you can see.
Yeah, I mean, you technically, you can see part of some of your rotator cuff muscles at the back. But essentially, like subscapularis, it's hanging out in your armpit, it's underneath. And yeah, infra and supra, like teres minor, teres major. We're not going to get too terminology heavy on this. It's more, guys, that we tend to work the muscles we can see. It's that simple. You know, depending on who you are, even if it's not, oh, I want to look good. It's just like, I see that muscle. How does this exercise work? I work on that muscle. But every time you move your arm, you use your rotator cuff, basically. Here's the problem though. Because we do jiu-jitsu, we spend so much time in this posture, this hunch posture, pulling, pushing, bracing. And we often just keep working until there's a problem. You're good until you're not.
Yeah.
And so then we're getting shoulder pain. Then our shoulders are jacked and we're like, oh, I got bad shoulders. But the thing is we can unwind it. So one of the things I want to talk about here is like, let's unwind this tightness we've made. So opening up through the chest, opening up through the front of the shoulder, opening up through the lats. For yourself, Joe, what would you say are like your top moves for opening up the chest? Like one for the chest or the pec, one for kind of front of shoulder, and one for lat? Or is there one move that does it all?
There's, yeah, okay. So a couple of my favorites, hanging.
Yep.
Right. Just the, passive hang that we do a lot of, that we kind of, we push it through the program. Doesn't necessarily, if you're super tight in the pec and stuff and lat, it'll get that, but it's more just like kind of everything of the shoulder gets a good sort of stretching and also nice decompression of the spine. I really like that. I really like, which I learned from you, the scorpion stretch. Scorpion. That hits the pec really directly for me and for anyone. And I find that very effective, particularly after training jits. And then I suppose like talking Latin stuff, any of the side hanging stuff. So the side hang Cobra.
Side hang Cobra, such a good move.
Yeah. Or, you know, like the modified version where you're just hanging onto like a pole and kind of stretching out to the side. Those for me would be sort of 3 different ways where I'd attack that area.
Okay. And one I'd like to chuck in there, guys, because this is where it gets me. My posture is a little bit forward, is like our seated shoulder extension. Just really kind of working those hips forward, hands behind, and really trying to open up through anterior deltoid, bicep, that whole bit. So there it is, guys, just starting to address the problem or like the symptomatic issue. But really, the root cause is that we don't know how to use the muscles at the back so much. And this is where we're talking about your scapula, your shoulder blade. And this is with your scapular retraction. So we're talking about your rhomboids, which is like the reason why they're called rhomboids, it's like a matchbox that's kind of been shifted on a bit of an angle, helping
to make a rhomboid shape.
Oh, allegedly. God, you get so mathematics on me, bro.
Fuck, bro. Geometry, bro. Sacred.
God, stop getting so nerdy.
Third eye shit. Tell Eddie Bravo I'm coming.
His third eye is open. And then, so
scapular retraction. Can I give a bit of basic anatomy here?
Please.
So scapula, that's your shoulder blade. We talk about that a lot. You can think of your shoulder. It's got this part of the joint, which is like the ball and socket. And then you've also got the shoulder blade, which sits at the back.
Yes.
So there's a lot going on there. It's a very complex joint.
It's probably the most complex joint within all the joints.
Yep. Yeah. And so here's a fun fact. Omoplata.
Yes.
Means shoulder blade.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I think omo is bone and plata is plate.
Oh, there you go.
I believe so. The omoplata is like shoulder blade lock.
Right.
Yeah, but in any case, it's like, all right, so when we're doing stuff that involves the shoulders, because it is such a complex joint, there's movement of the scapula, of the shoulder blades, and there's also movement going on here.
Yeah.
So when JT's saying like retraction of the scap, we're talking about literally pulling the shoulder blades back together. And if you're listening to this, just like squeeze your shoulder blades together, try and touch them. Okay, that's retraction.
Yeah. Stick your chest out, pull your shoulders back.
Yeah.
Right.
And just basic anatomy, push them forward, spread them apart. That's protraction.
Yeah.
Right. So that's really like that, and the internal rotation of the shoulder. That's our grappling golem posture, isn't it?
Yeah, that feels bad.
Yeah.
Just doing it, I'm feeling like, pain at the front.
I feel safe here though.
Oh yeah.
My arms are protected.
Yeah.
You're not going to knee ride me as much.
Yeah. But I can't protect you from yourself when your posture's terrible when you're on the computer later.
Right.
You're getting
uploading this fucking episode.
Getting submitted by a spreadsheet. Modern life. But guys, the thing with that is we know how to kind of pull down using our arm, but it's very rare. Like we work with lots of different grapplers. When I say to them, okay, now I just want you to perform the movement using your shoulder blades, pinch your shoulder blades back together, whether they're in a hanging position or they're in a push-up position. Don't use your elbows. Do a scap pull, a scap row, or a scap push-up. People struggle. It's just the brain-body connection isn't there.
Yep.
Straight away, people, when they're pulling, they want to bend at the elbow. They want to use the biceps, they want to use the forearm. It's like the first instinct. Also, you can use your shoulder blades in this way, like scapular retraction, and also protraction, where we push them apart in a push-up position or even a handstand position, overhead position. And it's actually very key for you to be able to do that when it comes to overhead position. And you could speak to this, Joe, with your experience in handstanding. You spend a bit of time protracting, retracting.
Yeah. With the handstand, you're looking for elevation, and you're looking for maximal elevation, actually, like as much as you can get. So you're thinking like shoulder blades pushing up into your ears so that you're using your upper trap as much as possible.
Yep.
But the thing is, for most people in daily life, everyone can probably kind of agree with this a bit. Working for long hours, being under a little bit of stress, that kind of thing, naturally we start to elevate shoulder blades.
Yeah.
And what happens is that for a lot of folks, the upper trap, which is responsible for that movement, becomes very strong.
Yep.
But it's at the expense of all of the lower portion of the trap, the rhomboids, all these muscles that are below the scapula. And we end up then with like JT's saying, it's like when you get that person, you're like, well, show me like a really good quality chin up or pull up. They can't actually mobilize the scapula independently. They're just like stuck in that position and they pull with their arms.
Yes.
So it's really what we're talking about is trying to be able to build like the awareness to where you can control that joint.
Yeah.
So we can say, okay, put your scaps down, squeeze them back, now pull to the bar. Okay, that's great.
Yep.
But if you're just doing it and the shoulder is who knows where,
yep,
that's problematic.
Definitely. And look, guys, this is the reason why I bring this up is you being able to use your shoulder blades in the right way, which is just really, could be as simple as a bit of re-education, just a bit of you working with your technique to be able to pinch your shoulder blades back. You feel that sensation where your shoulder blades are almost touching or the muscles kind of contracting at the back, but your traps, you're not shrugging. You're not pulling your elbows back and feeling tightness in your neck and shoulders. It's being able to lift your chest up. And the thing which can limit this is your thoracic spine. So this is something else that's worth mentioning, guys. And this is something that we do in the world of, PT and S&C, what have you, is when people have that hunch posture, for their shoulders to function well, they need to be able to fully extend their upper back. So when we're talking thoracic spine, we're talking from your mid back, which is kind of your bra strap level, when I'm wearing my man's ear to make me look like I have a chest.
Chesticles.
I need them. And then up to just where your neck starts. And that's where your cervical spine, not cervical spine. There's no such thing as a cervical spine, just so you know. For all you men out there,
I think I've said that before.
Well, I have. Yeah. I totally have. Oh, the cervical spine.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. This is my failing in anatomy. So thoracic is basically your upper back, guys, just so we're clear. And it does round forward, but we want it to be able to create extension. Otherwise, your shoulder's in a really terrible spot. So if you try and lift your hands overhead or you try and do anything with your arms, you're still semi-comored. So we need to be able to open up our thoracic spine. So looking at this, guys, we've got these issues. How do we treat them? What are we going to do to fix this problem? So you've given us 3 really great moves for opening up. What do you feel, or what are your favorite movements for getting the scaps working properly, Joe?
I would say the scap push-up.
Yep.
Which you touched on before. It's the push-up, but it's performed with a straight arm, and it's just scap moving back and forward.
Yep.
I would say the active hang.
Active hang.
Yeah. Which is, it's very simple, right? But anyone can do it. And it's just where you're hanging from the bar, you're in a passive hang position. And when you are hanging passively, your shoulder blades will lift, like they will elevate towards your ears. So all you're doing is pulling the shoulder blades down and then returning to that elevated position and just repping that. Third one for me, I actually really like the Scap Swimmer.
Oh, yes.
Where you're like lying front down, you're reaching arms up overhead, down your back. You're going between like external and internal rotation.
Yes.
I find it hits a lot of stuff, and it really highlights to people imbalance, show like the difference between left and right side. And it also just shows you the mobility that you don't have. Because, for the person you're describing, which is really probably 80% of the people we train with.
Yes.
Upper back is rounded, shoulders are forward and really tight, and a movement like that just exposes them.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, you can, like, in the world of jiu-jitsu, you can exist with this tightness because it's almost protective for you.
It's efficient. It's good for jiu-jitsu.
That's right. But the problem is like when you then want to go out and, like, I don't know, throw a fucking tennis ball for your dog to chase.
Yeah.
Or you want to come into the gym and you want to do some overhead pressing, or you want to fuck around on the rings or go rock climbing or something, you're at a really high risk of injury because you're going into positions that you're just not capable, like you don't have control of. And it's high risk.
Yes.
Similarly, if you are on the mats and someone takes you out of your strong position,
which can happen.
Yeah, right. Like that. And so it's like, well, if we can create some surplus space and strength there, then you got a little bit more room to move.
Definitely much less likely to get injured. The movement I would like to add to that, because I love those moves, is like an overhead squat position or a dislocate. So whether you've got a belt, guys, or you're using a band, like a resistance band, or you can even use your belt, taking your hands to whatever is like a suitable width to keep your arms straight, and taking that bad boy from the front all the way back as far as you can, opening out, and then coming forward, stretching through chest and getting your shoulders working like that is really like the most low-key entry-level stretch or movement for that internal external rotation through the shoulder, which really can be, I guess, built up to over time when we look at, say, a very advanced movement, which is skin the cat.
Yes.
And for those of you out there who, we've touched on this before, you might have done it when you're a kid. You're hanging on some monkey bars, you rock your feet up to the bar, you walk your feet through, and now you're hanging in a fully flexed position if you can get there. See, the funny thing is you see kids do it all the time, but then adults, they probably can't even get their feet up to the bar.
No, you wouldn't even dare.
Yeah. People are just...
Unless we were like, we want you to do 5 sets of 3.
Yeah.
I'll give it a go. And then bicep tears.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, guys. There's a degree of re-education here. So what can you do about this? You've got tight shoulders. You can loosen them up. We can get our shoulders working better, but then we've got to incorporate it, because just doing the isolation stuff is not enough.
What's so we're looking at, so say we're saying, all right, get them moving. So here's a couple of stretches that we like or whatever. Why is it not enough to just do the stretches? If it starts moving well, like if I do the stretches, I do 3 sets of hanging and the scorpion that you told me about. It's moving pretty good. What happens if I just go back to my training and I don't do any kind of follow-up strength work?
Well, that's the thing. It's kind of Band-Aid, guys. Like stretching, it is good in the moment when you're warm, everything else like that. But you don't get a substantial change because the tissues are just going to go back to where they were before. You cool down, and if anything, you're going to go do jiu-jitsu, so you're going to probably pull them more. You're going to undo all the good work you've just done. There's got to be a form of re-education in the sense of the muscles that have not been getting the attention and not getting the training, they need to wake up. We need to teach them to work, to stabilize, to get stronger in these positions that we haven't trained so that our joints are safer. That's why it's going to take a bit of extra work to do some scapular retraction, to do some external rotation, to make your shoulder blades just function healthily, and then go and incorporate those into your moves. So then once you're like, right, I've done my stretches, feel good, okay, now let's actually do some work to get the shoulders more balanced. Let's build up that upper back. I'm trying to remember where the saying comes from, but it's like, you need to have an upper back like a bodybuilder, but a chest like a powerlifter. Like you don't want to have a huge chest. Mm-hmm. You can never really have a big enough upper back. Like the stronger your upper back, the better. You can't really fail.
There's no
there.
upper limit.
No, not really. Your posture can't really be too good. And that's the thing. We spend so many hours every day hunched. Whether we think about it or not, I do it all the time. Once you've spent an hour or two at the computer, you're hunching.
Yeah.
And just that time spent, you've got to provide a remedy. And more and more of us are working on laptops. We're working from home. We're doing Zoom calls, all this kind of crap. We have to spend at least a certain amount of time every week unfucking our body. I actually said this to a client recently who has the worst posture ever. I said, you come see me once a week for an hour and you do jiu-jitsu. So jiu-jitsu is an active form of, really tightening up the body. Plus he sits in his car for his job and a bunch of stuff. How many hours a day do you spend wrecking your body versus how many hours a week do you spend kind of doing the counter? And he's like, I might do 10, 15 minutes a day. I'm doing my homework like you told me. Yeah, but like if you see me for an hour and you do actually do 15 minutes a day.
It's a drop in the ocean.
You're only doing 3 hours out versus 70
yeah,
or whatever it might be. So what I was going to say with this, guys, is once you do understand how your shoulder blades work and you're doing some work with that, you need to go and use it in your pull-up. You need to then think about your retraction or your protraction when you're doing a push-up. We need to incorporate it into our day-to-day workouts, like exercises, because then it becomes a habit. It's no longer just some cool thing. Oh yeah, those Bulletproof boys down at Jungle Brothers, they talk about, use my scaps, and then you go sit on the computer with your posture looking like shit. We got to actually do something about it, guys. So how do we get this in our lives? The 2 things that I recommend, like every day, and this is just something I do myself, is have one go-to movement that you use, like that you can do at home, do at the office, do at the gym, that you do every single day for a number of reps, whether you might do a couple of sets or you like, right, every hour or so I'm going to get up from the computer and do this movement to help open up through my chest, through my shoulders. And then once I've done the stretch, I always couple the stretch or mobility exercise with an activation. So whether that be a band pull apart or a scap push up or a scap pull, to get that re-education process going. Because the stretch will take off the handbrake, or the mobility work will help loosen up the restriction, and the activation is actually going to get the muscle switched on that I need to work. And honestly, guys, the thing I find easiest, there's a move, this comes from Pavel Tsatsouline. RKC is the grease the groove, which is if you don't have time through the day to do one big workout, you just do 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, and you break it up over the day. If you can do that one stretch 3 or 4 times or 5 or 6 times throughout the day for a couple minutes at a time and do your activation, at the end of the day, your shoulders are going to be feeling good. You're not stuck in this locked in static posture. How about you, Joe? Is there something that you can give the people that works for you?
I think Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I think the simplest way to approach like getting some movement back into the shoulder blades is the shoulder rotations that we do.
Yep.
Just those arm circles.
Yep.
You know, it's like, all right, if you're at the very least, you can do 20 reps of that every single day. At the very least, you can do that before you start training jits. And then, you know, layer in some stuff on top. Do some hanging. Do some seated shoulder extension. Like whatever it is, add in the stretch that hits the spot for you. But I think for folks, it's like set the bar low.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just do this one thing and I'll do it every day. And once you get to a point where you've proven to yourself, I can do this consistently, then you can start to layer in more. But if you go, all right, JT and Joey gave me 3 really good exercises, I'm going to do 3 sets of that every day.
Probably not going to happen.
Probably not. It's probably going to be too ambitious, and then you'd be like, fuck this.
Yes.
Right? So pick the one and then, you know, over time, layer it on. I think that it's a really good point you make about how much time we spend doing the damage, and then to bring people back to that idea of, well, you have to spend, we're not saying you have to spend the same amount of time undoing it, but you need to spend a substantial amount of time. And whether that is time per day or whether that is time like frequency done daily for weeks, months, years on end, in order to get to a point where you've now restored pretty good balance.
Yes.
And you don't have to spend as much time on it.
Yeah.
I think that's really important for folks to kind of take into account because, your whole life conspires to put you into this fucking grappling golem position.
Yes.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So it's like, well, man, you got to do, and this is why surfing has always been a great counter to jiu-jitsu for the upper back.
Yes.
It's because you're lying on your belly, arched up, you're paddling, and there's naturally like a lot of scapular movement going on.
Also like a very cool thing to do. And it also puts you in the position to be having, lucha libre fights
on the beach.
On the beach.
That's right. Someone kicks sand in your lady's face. Oh, fucking lucha libre this motherfucker.
Crazy jiu-jitsu, bro.
Yeah.
I'm wearing those real thick Brazilian Speedos.
Oh, yeah.
And flip
sunga.
Yeah, man.
I think I still got one that I bought in Brazil.
Man, I paid way too much. I got some. So stylish.
Oh, bro.
They're like bodybuilding.
It's like a rite of passage for any blue belt who's traveled to Brazil.
You got to get the Brazilian.
Sunga,
mate.
Buy some Havaianas because they're better the ones in Brazil.
Obviously.
That's not true at all.
No.
But yeah, it's like get a little bit of that shit in. Find a way to just make it part of your routine. Like I feel very fortunate that we have like pull-up bars around us at the gym so we can hang.
Yeah.
And I would probably hang every day as well. Like that's just, if I think about it, I do some every day. But say if I go to jiu-jitsu, there's no bar there. So you can't hang. So if you just showing up at jiu-jitsu, maybe you're stretching your pec against the wall. Yeah. Maybe you're sitting in that seated shoulder extension.
Yeah, tabletop press.
Yeah.
Super easy way to create extension.
Yep.
You just need a spot on the floor.
Right.
Even like the one move I get everyone to do nearly always, whether it's in warm-up or in the cool-down process, a side-lying rotation. If you've never done that, you don't know what that is, you can definitely find that if you Google.
We'll do a video after this and we'll just do like our like top fucking 6 shoulder activation and shoulder mobility exercises.
Definitely.
Because I think for folks, by the time they're listening to this, they'll be like, oh, I can kind of picture it. Yeah, I know that one, don't know that one.
Yep.
And I think what's really good, and this is what we're trying off through the program, is like, look, here, like with the program, we say, do these specific 3 exercises. We make it very clear. We don't give you much choice because you're coming to us because you don't have to think about it too much.
That's right.
So prescription works well. But what is really the next level of mobility work is when you can take those drills, practice them for a while, and then when you start to sort of identify the ones that really hit the spot for you, and you're like, that stretch or that drill is fucking awesome for me.
Yep.
Then you're going to make that part of your like arsenal, and you're like, I'm doing that regularly.
Yes.
And then you start to kind of accumulate this list. If you can have this list of like, whatever it is, 3, 4, 10 key drills that really produce a good result for you, that's invaluable.
That's right. It's like your own greatest hits list of mobility. Yeah, you got to love it. You're like, man, these are the killer tracks for me. I play them every day until I hate them. No, you just get them in there and it just becomes part of your vocabulary. So, you see people, if you don't know who Merv Hughes is, let me let me re-educate you. But, you got dudes just like standing there going like I'll just do a bit of side bend, bit of the hips, maybe grab my foot, just pull it up to my ass. Yep, I'm good to go. Look,
That's the cats that just don't know what to do.
I don't know what to do.
I
have to
before class.
I need to look like I'm doing some kind of stretching. The best
is when you see them making stuff up,
just like pulling their arm across,
their arm and like making the paint face, like just working here, you know. And you're like, you're not fucking doing anything.
But I mean, look, don't get me wrong. Cricketers have come a long way since the 80s. But look, you know, it's one of those things that the reason why I mentioned Merv Hughes is he, you know, great cricketer, but terrible posture. If you don't know what I'm talking about.
Did he have terrible posture?
Well, look, he had a massive fat gut, and I wouldn't say his shoulders were particularly bad, but that's definitely not a guy who does mobility.
No.
But
the gut worked for David Byrne. Why can't it work for Merv Hughes?
Look, like I said, the game of cricket has changed. The guys are more athletic now, so I don't want to throw too much shade.
What are the key, like for guys here and girls who are listening who are like, I get it, fucking shoulder thing. What are the key takeaways then of what we've put forth?
Key takeaways, guys. You know your shoulders are tight. Okay, what are we going to do about it? There's a couple things we can do. You need to be addressing front, you know, through the chest, through the deltoid, and also through the lat. If you don't do that, if you ignore those pieces of the puzzle, you're not going to get a good shoulder position. The little caveat on that is also we need to do some thoracic extension. So if you have a roller or if you can use the side of your couch, anything that's going to open up through your chest to create that extension. Back bridging. If you guys ever done a back bridge, that's a great movement you can do. So undo the tightness. Now, re-educate the shoulder. Scapula, scap rows, scap push-ups, being able to pinch your shoulder blades back together without actually using your elbows. That's going to be key for retraining the shoulder and then incorporating this into day-to-day life. So we've got a lot to undo from sitting at the desk, from doing jiu-jitsu, everything like that. We have to find a way to get this in our life. So my recommendation is pick one really good movement that works for you and do it on the regular. Do it daily. And if you've got a second move that you also can do, that's great too. But start with one movement to start, you know, unfucking your body and get you on the right path. Then when you're in the gym, start doing the right things by training your shoulders correctly.
Yep. And if you don't know what that looks like, just follow our program. It's all in there. We talk a lot about scapular positioning, and if you're following our stuff, we tell you exactly where you need the shoulders to be, and you can be confident that you are training the shoulder correctly if you're following that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate you. It's been incredible, the response, like just in the last month, how many people have been tuning in and listening, and feel great. It's humbling. It's a great privilege for us to be able to chat with you guys. And if you have any recommendations, questions, anything like this, where you're like, oh, I really wish they'd just talk about this subject, you can reach us on Instagram at Bulletproof for BJJ. And then also you can hit us on Facebook. Join the community, which is Bulletproof for BJJ community. Just search that on Facebook. You can join up. If I stalk your profile and I think you're a jerk, I won't let you in. No, it's not true. That'll be revealed later. Please come join us. Any questions that you have, any suggestions you have for the podcast, you can just put them on there. We definitely take them on board. We're super accessible. If you want to reach me, guys, you can hit me up at on Instagram at JT_tenacity. Happy to answer any questions you have there. And guys, thank you so much. And essentially, onward. Thank you, Joe.
Onwards. Thank you, bro. Thanks for listening, guys.